The world is waking up, and you finding your way here today is no coincidence. The spirit world always has a way of guiding us where we most need to be at the absolute perfect time. I'm your host, Lindsay Morlock, and you're listening to the Guided Podcast, where we explore how the spirit world works on our behalf to guide us along our paths. This is where you'll learn how to live a life that is both conscious and connected, so you can supercharge your pathway to healing and open to life's magic and miracles. Come along this journey to see how guided you truly are. Welcome to the show, everyone. Today, I am so excited to share with you this guided conversation with Debbie Squizzero, a passionate, authentic, funny, and incredibly talented psychic medium. Debbie has actually become known as the singing medium, and throughout this episode, you are going to see exactly why we call her that. But she wasn't always walking this path out loud. In fact, while she recognized her spiritual gifts from a very young age, it wasn't until her 30s that her gifts really started to blossom. For many years, Debbie straddled her job as a special education teacher alongside a growing mediumship business until an emotional breakdown finally forced her to re-examine her priorities and refocus her life. With Spirit's help, Debbie rebuilt her entire life by trusting, asking for help, and following the guidance Spirit offered along the way. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about Spirit's messages, how we connect with our departed loved ones and our spiritual support teams, and what it means to trust Spirit as we dive into our unique soul lessons and journeys. Over the years, Debbie has been incredibly committed to developing and deepening her abilities as both a psychic and a medium. And as a result of focused study with many remarkable mentors and teachers, she now provides others with strong communication with the other side, as well as guidance, clarity, and insight about their lives. Debbie is especially attuned to the ways in which we can communicate with our loved ones who have passed on, and she reminds us that they're always there waiting for us if only we reach out and listen. Though Debbie's path didn't take her anywhere near where she expected to be, the love and passion she feels for her life now is absolutely contagious. She is such an amazing and energizing example of what living a guided life can look like, and I hope you'll feel that excitement in this episode. So without further ado, let's dive into our conversation with Debbie. Debbie, welcome to the Guided Podcast. I am so excited to have you on the show. How are you?
I am wonderful, and I am so excited for this opportunity today. Thank you so much, Lindsay.
Yeah, I'm so glad you could be here. I just feel like you have such a beautiful story. And for the listeners out there, Debbie and I met several years ago, actually at a training. And it was such a divine connection because a beautiful friendship has blossomed since our initial meeting. And we have just continued to connect on the different ways that Spirit has brought magic and miracles into our own connection. And so I'm so excited for everybody to learn more about who you are. So to kick us off, why don't you just start off by introducing yourself and sharing with the audience who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Debbie Squizzero, psychic medium. I live in Rhode Island. And so what I do is I encourage my clients to live beautiful, fulfilling lives. And I do that a couple of ways. I do that by connecting them with their deceased loved ones on the other side, and trying to help them understand where they are and delivering messages of healing and inspiration and validation and evidence that life is eternal, love is eternal, and that bond isn't broken. But I also will sit with clients who want to know about intuitive things and things going on in their everyday life, past, present, future issues. And so I have both of those clients that I sit with, and I encourage both of them to live fulfilling, successful lives by empowering them with the messages of healing and inspiration. And I also teach a lot during my sessions about death, dying, and the other side, because many people don't understand about energy and vibration. And so I, explain to people that we're a vibrational being, and we say we're a human being. So that just goes along with my metaphysical, my spiritual teaching and death and dying. So that's what I do. And I I absolutely love it. It's my passion to bring healing, inspiration, and evidence, and connecting people with their loved ones is absolutely my passion.
That's one of the things that I always love about you is that you really walk your talk. You walk with this integrity. You're so authentic. And I think that's so important because we really can't, we have to practice what we preach. We can't just go out there telling people what to do, but not be walking that path ourselves, right? That is going to get shown to us by spirit in a big way, right? So yes. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your own awakening story, because I just love how powerful your awakening was, and share with people how you really got into this work and how you've blossomed to where you are today.
Oh, okay. I love that. I always say my life is nothing the way I thought it was going to be. Like, I know many of us say that, but like, I truly thought I would like be that mom, have a couple of kids, have a dog, have a husband. My life is nothing like that. And I love my life. I am so grateful. No matter which one it was going to happen, but we all have these, I want to say expectations to some degree, but so I've always had this beautiful, I'll call it my beautiful gift. And since I was 6, I remember telling my mom I'd go to bed and like these shadowy figures would come out of my closet. Like when you watch a ghost hunters show, that's how I usually explain it. It's like that. And they would just float and come out and they wanted to talk. And there was, sometimes it was 2, 3, and I'd be like, oh, I don't know. I would always have dreams of my vivid dreams of deceased loved ones who had passed, and like down to like the color in a plaid shirt. And then, that just, and I always felt like someone was with me and watching me, and in a loving way, not in a like a creepy, scary way. I never felt like that. It felt protective to me. Then in my teens, and into my early 20s, people would just tell me things like deep, dark, like, and I would say, oh gosh, why are you telling me this? And they would just say, Deb, but you give really good advice. And I didn't realize at the time, because I was just being Deb. The advice was coming, I was being channeled from a higher source and beautiful spiritual beings that were using me as a channel to help these people. And then my real unfoldment, I will say, when it really started to, I'm gonna break out in a song, because I forgot to tell you guys that I'm also known as the singing medium, because spirit gives me a lot of messages through song, and I love it because sometimes it just breaks up a really heavy message, or sometimes it's just so funny, and most of the times it fits absolutely perfectly. So I heard the Beatles come together right now. So in my early 30s, I was going through a really bad divorce, and restraining order. It was bad, and I had never experienced something so emotionally heavy in my life, and it took a toll on my mental, physical. And what happened was, my abilities just blew wide open. They usually will say that when you go through something, super emotional or hard or big, life-changing, sometimes the abilities just really come to the forefront. So I'll back up and say I had always gone to readers too. I was always attracted to, in my teens, having my cards read. In my 20s, I saw a woman who actually told me I was going to do this work. And I told her, I was like, no, you're full of crap. I'm not doing this work. Here we are like 20 something years later. Right. But when I was going through that difficult period in my 30s, all of a sudden, when I say it blew open, I was a teacher too. Let me back up and say I was a teacher, special education, early childhood teacher for 22 years. So I was at school when this was going on, and people were walking by me, and I was just hearing things about them unsolicited. Like I wasn't asking. And this is always the story I tell, because I remember this one so vividly. A teacher assistant walked by me, and I heard going to Ireland. So of course I'm like, well, now I got to go test it out. I got to go see if it's like, is this what I'm hearing? And so I went up to her and I said, oh, hi, so-and-so. We're in the copy room. Hi, so-and-so, you got any trips planned? What's going on? Oh, Deb, yeah, my husband and I, we're going to Ireland this summer. I'm like, damn. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what do I do with this? And I went to go see somebody who I was working with recommended this local healer, because the woman who had read for me in my 20s, she was no longer in my area. And we're going way back before the internet, before all of this. So she was gone. So I was like, no, I need a new person. And, as Spirit always gives us what we need. So they placed this beautiful local healer in front of me. I went to her, and she's the one that really 20 something years ago now, because this has been a beautiful journey of 20 whatever years for me, 2021. I started in I'm 51 now. So in my 30s, it really started to open up and unfold for me. So she's the one that really clued me in. And I told her what happened. And she said, you have these abilities to help people. And I'm like, oh, that lady told me that in my 20s. There must be something to this. Right?
The breadcrumbs, right?
Yeah.
I always find the people are placed on our path in this, sometimes in a dripping out version.
Oh, Lindsay, yes. So she said to me, if you wanted to help people, you have these abilities. And I was always drawn to the spiritual, metaphysical. And I told her about my vivid dreams. And so I started studying with her, and I took every single class that I could, because I left her office that day. First of all, I was so beside myself, I forgot to pay her, and I had to turn around and go back and pay her. I was just so excited to just understand what was going on. And, so I studied with her, and I just, wanted to learn as much as I could about what was going on with this, because I left there that day and said, if I really do have this ability, I truly want to help people. Like, I felt it in my heart. Like, the way she made me feel that day when I left, like, she inspired me, she healed me, she made me feel whole. She just, it was amazing. And I was like, wow, if I really could help people on that level, sign me up, because I could just feel it in my heart. And that's when the real unfoldment started. And then I just, from there, now we're going back 20 years. So there was no online, there was no, it wasn't mainstream like it is now. So I went to after I took as many classes as I could with her, because I took every single one she offered. And then I was ready for more learning. So I went to the local metaphysical store, and I sat, what I now understand. I didn't know what it was or what it was called or what you did. I just knew I was there because I wanted to help people and develop my ability. I sat in development circle every Sunday, and I was there from 11 to 2 for years and years and years. And I didn't understand what that was. All I knew was that I would go, and we'd be in this circle of 8 people every week, and I loved it. Like I said, now I know that's development circle. And then I just started to read for family and friends out of my house for many years before I went on to read for clients. And that's another whole part in itself in the story, because part of my journey, I struggled for so long with my self-worth and my confidence doing this work. So I stepped out baby steps. I had, like you just said earlier, when you're ready, Spirit puts in front of you. So after I read for family and friends in my house for so many years, Spirit put me in front of a woman who I've done so many things in my crazy life so far. It's so beautiful. I've had so many different experiences. I had a weight loss journey, and I was a personal trainer in my 30s as well. And I met this woman, and we would train together, and she had her own little place. So I would go to her. She also did massage. And I went to her one day to get a massage, and I noticed she had all of these oracle cards, and I didn't know she was into all this. And I said to her, so-and-so, oh my gosh, I have those cards. And she said, Debbie, I didn't know. And I go, oh yeah, I'm reading for people out of my house. Debbie, you have to read here. What was my initial reaction? No. I'm like, no. And she's like, oh, I won't take no for an answer. I go, oh, I'm going to tell you no. And, I always say, because one of my beautiful that we studied with, Lindsay Marino, she has instilled this phrase in me, and it's so true. The thing you resist the most is the thing we need to embrace the most. So I left this woman, and I said, okay. At the time I was doing my teaching job, and I had another part-time adjunct faculty position at a local community college. That really wasn't my passion. The little ones were my passion. That's right. But I was like, it was just another source of income. And so I sat with it and I said, you know what? Even if I see one person a month in her space that she's offering me, I'd rather do that. That's what I'd rather do. And so I started there, and then I'll break out in another song because I hear it. One thing leads to another. So I went from there to another space, and the journey began. I will say, the journey began, and I did 2 jobs for 10 years. So I had my business, and I did teaching for 10 of my 22 years in education.
The thing I love so much is that every single time I've heard you talk about your story and you're at a choice, what I would call a choice point, where spirit presents you with an opportunity to stretch. We still have that free will choice, whether to step into it or step away from it. And you have always stepped towards it. You've always leaned into your discomfort. And it's amazing to watch how you have blossomed, because it's not that you don't feel the fear, right? That expression, you feel the fear and you do it anyway, but it's like, you've got to be with the emotion. You've got to validate the fear and still step forward into it. We are here to grow and evolve. And so we're going to feel uncomfortable. And I think sometimes we mistake the discomfort for this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing it. And yet every single time you stepped in, a door opened in a much bigger way for you.
I'm going to break out in a song because I hear it. I just love how they put these songs in for me. I heard that song, Catch Me, I'm Falling. And I would fall, they would catch me. I would fall, they would catch me. And to what you said, it's not easy to jump into those decisions, but I did. I feel like I've had that blind faith. I've trusted with millions and millions of baby steps, millions of baby steps, but none that I don't regret any of them at all.
So you are a very faithful person. I think for me, trust is something that definitely I've had to work at. It's come harder for me, trusting, and that's trust in my life, trusting other people, trusting myself, and trusting spirit too, right? I mean, yes. I'm somebody who, in hand analysis terms, right, I have the trust, intimacy, surrender life lesson. So that's partly what I'm here to learn. But I've always really admired your faithfulness, because it's modeled for me so beautifully what it really looks like. So how do you work with spirit? How do you find yourself in that place of faithfulness and trust? Because as you're talking about, for any of the listeners that may not understand, when you say you're talking about spirit, right? And yes. So it's like you would step and you would take that leap, and spirit would provide that net to catch you. And oftentimes that's what we're being called to do, right? We're being called to trust that if we make leaps in our life, that if they are the right steps, if we are aligned with those steps, that net will be there. But we have to step first, right? We often want spirit to show us the evidence that it's all going to work out, right? We're like, prove it, spirit, prove it. And they say, no, you step first, then we step.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that is so true. It's when you say stepping forward and having that trust. And I always say it was a series of baby steps. And I'll use this because as you were speaking, here was an example. So, there were so many times that I'd be like, I don't know if this is, I do love this, but should I be on this path? And when you have that indecision, I did trust spirit. So it came in baby steps. So here would be like my first trust and I saw it when you were speaking. So I was like, okay, and I'm glad you said that when I say they, it's my spirit team. Yes. Thank you. I
do the same thing.
I know we're just so used to it. We're so connected at this point. The trust has been built. When I first branched out from a metaphysical shop into sharing an office with somebody, an office space, which was a big step for me. I walked in one day and the person I was sharing the space with, it was empty. And I was seeing clients that night. There wasn't a chair to sit in. There was nothing. And I called this person and I said, oh my goodness. I said, what's going on? She's like, Deb, I can't afford my part of the rent. She said, because we share the rent. I can't afford my part of the rent. So I got to go. I'm like, oh, I seriously. So I just said to spirit, listen, if it's for my highest and best good, you will always hear me say that phrase. I give it to clients, heal highest and best. I say it all the time. And so I said to spirit, I said, please help heal this situation for my highest and best good. I trust you. If I'm supposed to do this work, heal it for my highest and best. And I really just let it go. Now it was like the second week of the month. So I had till the end of the month to find a new place. And I was like, great, that gives me 2 weeks to find a new place. Well, as spirit would have it, they connected me with somebody in my local area. So I didn't have to leave within a 5-mile radius, brought me through other friends an opportunity of somebody else who I'm still very friendly with today. And I was in that space. So that was a trust for me. And then I would always say to them, please continue to send me beautiful clients that I can bless and that can bless me. And then I let it go. And there has always been client after client. And I listen to what they say because, spirit uses people to get a message across. They use them as communicators. And I always tell people, listen, the message from spirit is loving and repeating. And so many people kept saying to me, Debbie, you should leave teaching and do this. And I'm like, God, that would be my dream. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, but I can't, and then I left it to spirit. Now I'm talking about that we're going on years of this, over 10 years of this, and they made it abundantly clear. Every time I took those baby steps back, they put something in my path in which I trusted, like you said, Lindsay, a breadcrumb. They put something in my path and I trusted it, whether it be new clients, a new space when I needed it, just whatever I needed, classes that I needed to take, mentors or people that I had to study. The more I surrendered, the more it showed up in my life. The biggest trust that I didn't have, or I tried to have, and this is where I say it's where spirit really, when you're off your path, in a big way. We know this, right? Spirit comes in and goes, listen, I hate to do this to you, but how many more breadcrumbs can I give you besides hit you over the head with the whole loaf of bread? Like, really now, come on. So I had toyed with the idea of taking a year leave of absence from my job of teaching to just try out my passion, because this is really where I could feel, I loved teaching, but my fire and my soul was helping people, inspiring people, empowering people. So I went back and forth. I had many little communicators and people who said, Debbie, you should take a year leave of absence. Okay. Yeah. That's what I did. And was I really going to do it? No. And Spirit said, we're going to really get you to trust us in a huge way, Debbie, like you've never had before. And I tell people, when you're off your path and Spirit is desperately trying to get you on your path and you're not listening, I call it the tablecloth trick. So they come in, or the rug trick, and they come in and they pull the tablecloth out from underneath you, or they pull the rug out from underneath you, and they say, lady, listen up. That's what happened to me. Doing the two things was becoming more intense for me. And my heart was really moving towards just wanting to be in my office more. But, I'm a person of integrity. And so I was trying to be the best teacher that I could be and the best psychic medium for my clients. Coupled with life, with, we all have issues with friends and coworkers and family and, and our own personal healing that we're doing. I was dealing with self-worth. I was dealing with self-love issues. And so all of this really just came down in the form of a stress-induced mental and emotional breakdown where I was forced to take that leave of absence. I was forced. The doctor wrote me out of work. So I was like, okay, I got you now. It was me, myself, and I. She wrote me out of work, and she said to me, no spiritual work and no education work. She said, go get yourself well. She told me, go get a therapist. Now, I've had a therapist on and off my whole life, and it's been the best thing ever. I'm not going to, I'm always say, listen, I'll always keep it real. Because so many of us, we have a similar path and we've had similar experiences. So, I got my therapist, and she told me all what she wanted me to do for healing and journaling and meditating and things that I do in my spiritual practice anyway. But now I had all day, every day to do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I adopted during that time that really truly changed my life to this day, where I say, when you say, I'm so dedicated to trusting Spirit, is I adopted a gratitude practice, which I never had in my life. I was thankful for things in my life, but I mean, to really feel that. And especially having a breakdown, like to be grateful to have your health, mental, emotional, and physical after Shaka Khan through the fire. Yep. Through the fire, guys. After we go through the fire, to have those realizations of, oh my gosh. So I started, besides my journaling and my meditating, was this gratitude practice to just get up every morning and start to be thankful for things that I was never thankful for or never took the time, I would say. So I open my eyes every morning and now say, thank you that I can open my eyes and see the beautiful world around me for another day. Thank you that I can hear the birds outside. They sound amazing. Thank you for my health, my family's health. It just things like that. And I have learned the word thank you so much. And gratitude, truly, my gratitude practice has changed my life in terms of trusting spirit too. So that breakdown was the biggest trusting spirit.
Yeah. And the breakdown you describe, I always feel like it brings you to your knees. Spirit can bring you to your knees kind of moments if we're not hearing the messages, if we're not following the path. And I think the fear's real for many of us that if it gets to that point where we're being brought to our knees, right, there's a reason that we're ignoring the signs and whatnot. And so that breakdown becomes a breaking open. And it sounds like that's what really happened for you, where you were able through that breakdown to break open to your own divinity in a new way or a deeper way.
100%, Lindsay. I love that. Break open, but the breakdown did break me open for sure. During COVID, I felt more inspirational than I ever have in my life. I agree
with that. And I think the forced pause for many of us, especially for those of us who, I'm someone that's comfortable on my own. I'm used to being right alone. I'm single. I live on my own, right? Similar to you. And so when you're used to that, it was actually a really nice opportunity to go within and go even deeper within ourselves and really look at the gifts that are available for us to discover through that time. Doesn't mean it's easy to do that work between you and you, but there's so many gifts to be unveiled when we actually are willing to lean into it. Because I think as a society, we're trained to move away from our pain. We're told to lean away from it, to avoid it, to minimize, deny, suppress, repress, whatever it is. And that doesn't help us get where we want to be. And you made a really big leap as a result of this breakdown, right? If you're interested, I'd love for you to get into, what came about as a result of your healing and the life changes you were able to make as a result of coming through that period.
Oh, absolutely. Because I've had many people say they've had something the same or similar. So I always say, if I can share my story and inspire somebody, absolutely. There were so many huge changes in my life due to that breakdown. And I will frequently say, who would have thought that I would be grateful for a breakdown? And I am. I say thank you to Spirit many times, because that truly put me on my path. Because as a result of that breakdown, I had a chance to really understand who I was as a person. I got deeper into myself and learned what I was about. I didn't really, I identified myself. I was a teacher. And that was it. But I learned what Debbie Squizzero was about. I learned that I had to look into my self-worth issues more. I learned that I had to look into my self-love issues more. And all of that came to the forefront. And also, as a result, when I had that leave of absence from teaching, it was like, Spirit will show me a place card saying to me sometimes, like, Deb, this was just holding you until you worked your way specifically through that very pause COVID period because it was during that period where I applied for my leave of absence. And the minute it was approved, oh my gosh, I could feel the energy shift in my life. And the beautiful opportunities that were coming forward were, I'm going to get emotional just thinking about it. And so that was a huge game changer for me. It was like Spirit was like, we were waiting. You trusted us. And now here it comes. They brought me beautiful opportunities. Also during that time that, that leave of absence in that year that I really got to look at my life, I jumped into when I say jump, I should back up and say I took some baby steps before I took a running leap and a jump. I made some big decisions that I was really going to get out of my comfort zone. And I was like, Spirit kept showing me to read for like groups of people. And I'm like, are you people crazy? I'm like, no, this is not happening. I'm like, I'm not reading for groups of people. I'm so happy in my little office. And they were basically like, Deb, if you can handle this breakdown and you still want to grow and evolve, then sister, let's get to it. So like the ABBA song, Take a Chance on Me, I trusted Spirit. They brought me my venue of where I should go to do this. I trusted them. And I did a 50-person in-person event. I absolutely loved it. I loved it. I loved being with the people. I loved giving messages to all those people, teaching them, informing them. The energy, just it totally changed me and as a psychic medium and my direction and my purpose. So, there's so many changes in terms of they also made me trust because, so as a teacher, you have this contract and you have this steady income every week or every 2 weeks, so it's very stable. It's very secure. So when I took this leave of absence after 22 years, it was like, Debbie, you're going to trust us, that this is still going to, Mariah Carey, we're going to make it happen. And they did, they did. I'm not going to say there were times that I was just, I had my moments, but I trusted because every time I kind of got to that spot, I was like, nope, reel it back, and I did. And I trusted them. And when there was like maybe a lull in something, I trusted that it should have been a lull. And then things picked back up. It was them saying, listen, do you trust us or do you not? And here's a test. And I did. And so during that time, a lot of changes were my confidence grew. I had my self-worth was getting a lot better when I say my worthiness, not just with my work, but everywhere in my life, relationships, whether they be work relationships, family or romantic. So that changed a lot for me. I was really stepping into my self-worth. I was loving myself more to say, you can go forward and you can embrace this work full time. You can do it. And I trusted Spirit. So they brought me opportunities, all the things that changed my life, beautiful opportunities, new mentors, masterminds, learning how to run a business. I mean, it's been beautiful. So yeah, so many changes that breakdown brought me. And the most, I'd say, learning authentically who Deb Squizzero is. That really separate from the teacher. Who was I as a person? I didn't know. And I learned and I'm still learning. I like to say we're a continuous and beautiful work in progress.
Always. We never stop. We never stop growing and evolving. There's a problem if we do, honestly. So, or as a friend of mine says, when you're done, you're dead. So
I like that.
Right. Yeah. It's good. So we're not going to, but what I love, and I want to reflect back is that, it's not to say that the ego is not going to get it in the way, that the ego is not going to try to roll out these patterns of self-doubt, but we have to stay the course and we have control over our mind. A lot of times I think we feel, especially if you're somebody like me who has a really strong mind, and mine is a very strong negative mind, I have to actively work at overriding that all the time. And I think when you mention gratitude practices, that's a strategy that really helps to train our minds how to focus on the things that we want, how to focus on the good in our lives. And it allows our thoughts and beliefs are really powerful. So it allows us to amplify more of that stuff in our life. And so Spirit's job is to help us to get where we want to go, the most prepared we possibly can be. And what I love about how you're articulating your story is you're demonstrating, right, how they brought you the right mentors and the right teachers and the right masterminds and the right opportunities at the right moment as you were ready. And I think that breakdown was also Spirit reflecting to you. You don't think you're ready, but we know you're ready. And this is what we're going to do to move you where you need to be. And I feel like I want to say to people, it doesn't have to be that dramatic, but when we ignore, right? Because I've done this too. I've ignored the nudges of Spirit. And so when they're tapping, when they're nudging, if we ignore those, that's like push, right? It's over. Like we're going to help you see what you need to see.
We're taking you to the cliff. Or I like to say, we throw you in the pool, sink or swim.
Totally. And you swam, right? You trusted through that whole process. And so it's not to say that that time period of your life was easy, because it certainly wasn't, but you were fully supported by spirit through the whole thing, right? From the love and compassion that it sounds like you needed to find for yourself to move through that difficult period, to trusting the new direction that spirit was showing you. And so what are the different ways? I mean, you clearly have a very strong connection with your spiritual support team, with spirit, but I think sometimes people are under the false assumption that intuitives naturally just know who their spirit guides are, who their spiritual support team is, that, it's just something that we've always had, we've always known. And I know that was not the case for me. That's something I have actively had to cultivate. So would you mind sharing a little bit about your own experience with getting to know your own spiritual support team and getting in touch with how you work with spirit and how you forge that tunnel for yourself?
Absolutely. And it's funny because when things really opened up in my 30s and I was hearing things, I was like, who's talking to me? I had no idea. And when I started studying with the local healer, she taught me a lot about the angels and the archangels. And so for me at the beginning of because we all have a different journey. And so for me, before I understood spirit guides in my journey, it was angels and archangels and guardian angels. And that's how I learned about them. And the more I learned about them, I incorporated them in my life. How did I do that? By learning about them and because we have different guardian angels or different archangels that help us with different things. Like Archangel Gabrielle is so good about speaking and giving you the words. So if I had some sort of situation, I would call on her for that. Archangel Michael, I learned, was a protector. So I learned about the angels first, and Mother Mary, and all that for me on my journey was how I started to develop my relationship with the other side. And the other thing that I did was I loved oracle cards. And that was just for me personally. I called it, which I learned through my local healer. She would say to me, Debbie, make a date with spirit. Because listen, when you connect with them at the same time every day, they're going to start to expect you. And then when they expect you, you start to develop a relationship and you start to trust them. So I was most comfortable with, I would make a date with spirit and pull an oracle card every morning. And it was from this message angel deck. And I did that for so long, but I noticed that I started to ask for things like help or guidance. And I learned about the choice and the free will and how they come in. That was big for me. I'm like, oh, I can ask them that and I'm not bothering them, or I can talk to them all day long and they don't mind. Like I didn't understand that. So it was, I was taught that, we have these beautiful gifts of choice and free will. And if you want some divine intervention, you have this beautiful, is referred to as an SST, a spiritual support team, and they will come in and help you. And if you don't ask them, they're like, oh my God, this one's so boring. Never asked for my help. What am I going to do over here? I'm twiddling my thumbs. Like they're just dying, no pun intended, for you to call on them. And I didn't understand this, but you had to forego your choice and free will. So once I understood this, I started having huge conversations with them about my job, about my life. And that's where that whole heal highest and best comes from. I would say to them, I don't know what's for my highest and best, but you guys do. So I'm just going to say to you, and I understood that heal didn't mean that, Debbie, listen, we make this all nice, and it's all works out. No, heal sometimes, as my spirit people tell me, is heal sometimes is like the breakdown. Heal is like we rip the Band-Aid off. That's heal. But once you ask and connect, you know that you can forego your choice and free will for this beautiful divine guidance. I that's what I started to do. And then once I started getting into that, then I started meditating. And then once I started meditating, then I wanted to know, like, it was a feeling I had. I always felt like I had this one big presence with me, and I felt he was male. And for the longest time, I would just meditate and be like, who is this person with me? And for a long time, they would just say to me, literally, they would say to me, it really doesn't matter. We don't really care about names over here. This is a human thing that you people care about names, but I just know that we're with you. And here's me. I'm so stubborn sometimes, Italian stubborn. I'm like the round peg in the square hole lady, and I'm like, I'm going to find out who this is.
I want a name.
Yeah, it took me. And sometimes, they'll give you a name, and sometimes I feel like it's just like to placate who we are. Like we just have to know. But they had given me a name of like a Native American. And, once I started sitting with him, he became more into focus. And I'm talking, this was years for me on my own journey. It wasn't like an overnight, like, oh, look at this team of people just showed up, and this is Harry, this is Sally, this is no. So it started with the angels, developed into this one spirit guide. And then through that and doing my oracle cards and journaling, it just became, the more I started talking to them and journaling and developing that relationship, the more I could see evidence of my life that they were really around me, especially when I said, please help heal. A lot of times I'll also say to them, give me the words, please give me the words for ba, 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 because I don't have them. And it's amazing, how that happens. I get them. So for me, that's how it started. Angels, spirit guides. And the more I meditated, the more I could feel spirit come in. And I should also say, I also actively would have conversations with my beautiful deceased loved ones, because they are right here. This is where they are. And I always tell people they're not floating in the sky. They are right next to you. They're in another realm of consciousness. They're in another dimension. That's where they are. And so that's another thing. I would just have conversations with my loved ones, and they would make themselves shown either through their name or through a number pattern, which still happens today. And then I learned the more I talk to them, and the more I acknowledge their signs, the stronger our bond becomes. And that's what's happened. So
yeah, it's so powerful. And the thing, as you're talking, and I know you know this, I do the same thing. I always talk about spirit as they, but as we're talking about this, I feel the thing that they want me to clarify for everybody is that, we might talk about spirit as they, almost like they're outside of us, but they aren't outside of us. They are us. We are spirit. Spirit is us. They are us, we are them, right? And so even though we might be talking about them as they are part of us. They are an aspect of us. And so it's just that they see this 360-degree view that our humanness is cut off from in different ways. And so Debbie's right. I mean, we have to be able to be the ones to ask for help. And I so resonate with that, because that was something I had to learn to do, because I am not someone who is good at asking for help to other humans, no less the spirit world. So it doesn't magically get easier, in my opinion, to ask spirit for help if you're not accustomed to asking for help in any aspect of your life. And so spirit is always telling me, you can't out ask the universe. When I'm doing, my own work with spirit, I find that they're telling me, ask for help with this, ask for help with that, ask for help with this, so that I remember to even ask for help. So that's important for everybody, right? You have to be willing and remember to ask for help. So see where you can incorporate more of that into your own life. And so Debbie, I wanted to pick up on something else you were talking about, which was, one of the things you're talking about with noticing the signs and the symbols that spirit's showing you. And the more that we really connect into the different ways that they communicate with us, the more we notice and the stronger that gets. So do you have any, stories or thoughts for the listeners around, different ways, especially as you're working with your clients, that spirit is making their presence known to people who might not feel that connection as deeply yet as say you and I do?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say to people, listen, we don't have to wait for our loved ones to come in and wow us with something. Just start the conversation with them. I know for me, when my grandmother passed on my mom's side, we were very close. And on the day that she passed, I saw by the afternoon, I was on my third or fourth set of triple twos. And I just said to her, Grandma, listen, this is going to be a sign. I'm just telling you right now. I'm going to take the initiative. There's a reason why I'm seeing these numbers all day. It was twos, and numbers have vibrations. My grandma was a very upbeat person. 222, and the energetic vibrational realm of numbers means don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle and stay optimistic. And that's how she was. She was so upbeat. And so this made sense to me. And so throughout my life, when things are going on, I will see this 222 everywhere. And whether it be on the clock, whether it be on a license plate, whether I go to a store and it's $2.22, it's everywhere. The other thing is her name was Tina. And I'm like, in this day and age, how many people were named Tina? I mean, her proper name her full birth name was Justina. She would go by Tina. And if I could tell you how many Tinas I run into, and if I could tell you how many times Tina Turner comes on my Pandora on a station that Tina Turner does not come on, it is crazy. So that was like one way. And once I noticed that, I always tell people, listen, you have to acknowledge that they're taking the time and the energy to build this relationship with you from the other side. Acknowledge them. What do I mean by that? I would say to my Graham, thank you for showing up today. I love you. I needed you around today. Or sometimes I'll just say to her, listen, she loved to shop. I'll be like, listen, I'm going shopping. You coming? On the way there? No doubt I will see a license plate with a 222. And I'm like, she's shopping with me. I'm like, Graham, I'm glad you're coming shopping. Help me pick out some good stuff, So that's the way I've incorporated those signs. And I tell my clients the same thing. They'll be like, Deb, I see. Sometimes they'll come through in the reading, the loved one, to say what it is. And that doesn't happen every time, but it does a lot. And if not, my clients will say to me, so, I hear this song and it just comes on the Alexa and that was their favorite artist. And I'm like, there you go, so it's those kinds of things. There are no coincidences.
Yeah. And it comes full circle back to that trust too, right? The minute that artist is coming on the Alexa and in that moment, it brings our awareness to that person, take it as a sign, right? But a lot of times I think we doubt, well, isn't, but I think that's where we can also lean more into our faithfulness and really trust the information that we're getting, because that's how it works.
Yes. And to know that you can set a sign with them, and they might not be giving you that sign. They might give you something else. Just be happy for what it is. But, you don't have to be sitting around saying, well, they're not giving me any. I can guarantee if you start a conversation with them, you will start to see evidence of them in your life. You will. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think what you're getting at too, right, is it's a two-way street. Yes, spirit can deliver us signs and messages, but just like you assigned a meaning to 222, right? You have a very specific meaning for you, what that means. And 222 actually means something different for me. And so spirit's going to work with our frame of reference, right? Yes. And so if I see 222, that might mean one thing for me. And it's okay that it means something different for Debbie, right? Because spirit's going to work with her frame of reference to give her those messages. And so, for me, when I'm, hiking, I often see feathers, and I've said to spirit, for me, feathers mean you're on the right track. So if I'm asking spirit for a sign that I'm on the right track, or I'm questioning whether I'm off track with something in my life, and then I see a feather, I know spirit's delivering me a message. Nope, you're good. You're on the right track. And I can kind of let it go, right? And just keep forging ahead. So we have to be willing to cultivate the relationship with our spiritual support team. But Debbie's right. I mean, they're all there, spirit, our departed loved ones, they're all right there with us. And it's just a matter of how much attention and awareness we bring to developing a relationship in this new way with them. And it actually can be really fun too. I will never forget. I said to my own spiritual support team, I had a big milestone birthday in December. And I said to my spirit guide, Liam, I said, how are you going to wish me a happy birthday? I feel like I needed something flashy for my birthday, right? But I wanted to just play around with it. And so I wasn't attached to how he was going to communicate happy birthday to me. I was thinking, oh, maybe he's going to, direct me to an oracle card that happens to have happy and a birthday and the same thing. Within an hour, I logged on to a client call on Zoom, and she was having trouble with her virtual background. And so she popped up with a virtual background that said happy birthday. And I just died laughing because I was like, well played, spirit. There it is. Right.
That's amazing.
It's so fun. It's so fun to play with spirit in that way. Right. Like sometimes I think people only think of spirit when they're starting out as like those, I'm on my knees praying because I need something to change. And they are absolutely there, loving and supporting us through all of our pain and our strife, but they also have a great sense of humor, and they're also working with us in these fun ways too. And so I think the more we can help people to expand their awareness to all the different ways that spirit plays out in our life, really helps to support the fact that we are so supported and guided in our lives.
I love that you brought that up because it's so true, Lindsay. It's so true. And what you said, we go so serious. I hear Stevie Wonder, let's get serious, but we do. And you're right. I'm so glad you brought that up, as to say they can be, like the word I just go, is whimsical and funny. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of this. I am such a serious person. I am a Capricorn through and through. I am devoted, right? I'm so devoted to my learning, right? But there, it gets hard and heavy sometimes. And when you want to just steep yourself in the learning, sometimes it's like, woof, we just need to lighten this whole thing up a little bit.
Yeah.
And spirit will help us do that too. So that's why I do think it's fun to play with them in some of these less threatening ways. Maybe you can comment too, Debbie. Sometimes I feel like when people are grieving, especially since this is an area that you're working with people in a lot, the heaviness of grief. Sometimes I've heard people asking for signs from their departed loved ones, and they just say, but they're not around. I don't feel them. They're not, I'm not getting any of the signs. And I often feel like it's because they're just in resistance to receiving those things. So what is it that you see in terms of helping your clients connect when they may be in a place in their life when it really feels hard for them to trust and connect?
What you said is so true, Lindsay, because they will say, I don't feel them, or they're not around me. Yet we'll have a session where so much evidence comes through where they are around them. And I will say, listen, all of this evidence of your mom is talking about this, or your dad is, with this, but they are just so within their deep grief that they're not open or available yet to seeing and accepting the signs. So what I do is I just reassure them that they are there. And I try to say to them, the more you can find love in your life, the more it will help you to be open to seeing more love, because our loved ones are in a place of love and they're sending you those signs from a place of love. But grief I know I just heard the word daunting, because yes, it is. And it's heavy. And a lot of times my clients have to work through their stuff before they can be open. But I reassure them that when you're ready, they're there because they've always been there. They are there. You just have to be ready, willing, able, and open to see, understand the signs that they're giving you, because they really do have those signs. And I'm seeing, like, in the spirit showing me like this example. I had a family reading back in January where mom passed away very unexpectedly, and she stayed with her daughter in the same home. And her mom had come through in the reading with so much beautiful evidence and validation. And the daughter just kept saying to me, but can she just give me the name that she would call me? Because that, and I said, listen, but I want you to open up, because your mom is definitely around you. And these are all the beautiful things that she's given you. And sure enough, in this crazy way, on the way home from the reading, the mom revealed herself the name that she would call her daughter Pumpkin. And it didn't come through in the reading. And I said to her, you know what? You don't need, this is your mom saying you don't need a medium. She's given you so much validation to let you know she's around you in your own time. Because this is my favorite phrase I will say all the time. There is no rule book for grief. Zero. I know there are stages. Yes, but there's no hard and fast rule book. I tell my clients, you do grief the way it feels good for you, and nobody's going to tell you different. So embrace what feels good to you. So when I said to her, sometimes just be open, and her mom wanted to do this on her own. So on the way home, she saw, it was January, I believe, the reading was, she saw this orange jack-o'-lantern pumpkin bucket in the middle of the road on the way home. And the woman emailed me and I said, this is what your mom was saying because I'm just the channel. And I said, this is what your mom was saying, that she's given you so much evidence that she is around through this reading. But she wanted to do that. So you'll trust that yes, I am around you, So that's mostly what I tell my clients, that they are around you. And sometimes if you don't know what it is, ask them for the clarification, like make it more clear what it is, or set the sign, set it,
I remember one day I was at the grocery store and a thunderstorm had just passed, and there was, part of the sky was still gray from the rain moving through, but then the sun was coming through. And I was like, ooh, maybe my grandmother will send me a rainbow, right, from the other side, because every now and then when I see rainbows, I always think of my grandmother. Mm-hmm. And so I set that intention, right? Grandma, send me a rainbow. And I'm looking all around and just convinced that I'm going to see this rainbow. And so I was feeling all disappointed that I couldn't find evidence of this rainbow. So I end up coming home. I'm looking out the window. I'm trying to find it. I sit down at my computer, I open up an email, and there is a picture that pops up with a rainbow in the picture. And so that was such a message to me. I said to Grandma, thank you more, please. Right. That's such a great prayer for spirit, right? Because we are acknowledging, right, our gratitude for an awareness of yes. what they're delivering with this request for expansion. But it's such a good reminder not to tie spirit's hands. They can get us messages in so many different ways, but if we're attached to how that message has to come through, we miss the magic and the miracle of it, right? I was not for a second expecting to see a rainbow in a picture in an email, but I was absolutely certain that that came from her. But I was so attached to seeing that rainbow in the sky. I was never getting the sign from the sky. That wasn't happening. I was resisting the message by being so attached to the way that it was going to show up.
And it comes back to trust, right? And when you said that to me, I'm like, so listen, so a rainbow is a rainbow is a rainbow. Whether you see a real one, whether it's a picture of one, somebody painted one, it comes down to the trust. When you were saying that, I'm like, that comes down to the trust. She heard you, and now you have to trust me,
Totally. And it's so fun when we connect where it's coming from and how they're playing with us. So do you have any other thoughts around the way magic and miracles are playing out in your own life on a daily basis? Signs are definitely one of the ways that I feel like we've talked a lot about, but what are the other ways that you notice spirit working through your life?
First, I like to say, I feel like every day is magic and miracles in my life. I truly feel, and I've never felt like that in my life, but I always say, living this beautiful life, I say, listen, I don't work a job. I live my passion every day. I have a series of what I call pinch me moments. Pinch me. This is really my life. Pinch me. I get to help people like this and do what I love. And to me, that's my magic and my miracle every day, that I truly get to serve spirit and help these beautiful people. And how that magic and that miracle continues to happen in my life is this beautiful alignment of clients that I like. They just show, spirit just brings them to me. It's beautiful. They just show up in my life, and I'm so grateful. And however we find one another, however, whether it's, through this person or a networking or, I find that's the miracle and magic. And the other miracle and magic I find every day in my life is that since I've stepped into gratitude and I'm in such a high vibration now, higher than I've ever been in my life, I find that the magic and the miracles come in form of alignment. So I look to say, okay, I feel something in my life, and I'll feel like this excitement. And then all of a sudden I have like this situation, and then this person, and then this validates this. And it all just seamlessly, without me feeling lack, scarcity, negativity, just complete surrender and trust. Those miracles and magic show up, whether it's a new venue to do, more clients, just beautiful mentors that show me different avenues of study of what I can do. That's how I believe it shows up in my life continuously. Every day, beautiful people like you. I mean, I feel as though that's the magic and the miracle. And that's how spirit continues to bring it in my life every day.
And I love that because you're really articulating that the magic is within you. I mean, and that's really what it's about. And because it works through us, right? It is
Absolutely.
us. And so, when you step into the flow of life like that, which is what I hear you saying, right? The synchronicity and the alignment, right? When we are aligned, we just attract everything that we need. We don't need to force or push to make things happen, which is something that is completely opposite to what we've been raised to believe, right? But when we're aligned.
And to your point, Lindsay, when you said that, the Spirit just showed me, it made me think of, and I was going to mention it before, and I was like, well, I don't want to interrupt her, because for half of my life, I really saw myself as a victim in life. I did not see, as I like to say, I did not see life I didn't always have life like this or see life this way. This is new for me. So I always saw life like as a victim, and I didn't see it through the eyes of love and compassion. I kept saying, oh, poor Debbie, everything happens to me. Did you know everything happens to me? Like, that's how I used to feel. I know we all feel like that at points in our lives. Like, no, everyone else has got a great life, and I got this, and this. Like, we all got stuff. That's why we're here. And once I decided to shift that, like what you're speaking about, when you said the magic is within you, and I was like, oh my gosh, you said that so perfectly. I love, you have this beautiful way with words. That's exactly what it was. It was like this untapped magic that I didn't realize I had. Until I changed my thought pattern and changed the way I looked at life. I started looking at the obstacles as blessings and opportunity. And that's where, yes, when you said that to me, I just kept getting the whole victim, like, Debbie, tell them where you used to be, because you were not in a good place for a very long time in your life.
It's such a good point. I have to give that the magic is within you is totally my mentor, and I can't even take credit for it. But another thing my mentor says is things are not happening to us. They're happening for us. And that's what you're articulating there, in that you were able to make that shift from seeing how all of these things in our life are feeling like the victim is feeling like everything just happens to us. But when we really start to shift our perspective and see how things are happening for us, that's when we grow. That's when we evolve. That's when we start to obliterate patterns that are self-sabotaging and have held us back for our whole life. And so the willingness, I feel like we're coming full circle, right? The willingness to lean in and allow Spirit to show us the way and show us that pathway forward is so helpful, because I think sometimes we feel like we are in this alone, that nobody really understands what we're going through or what we need to do. And certainly, even if you don't have anybody in your life, like a human being in your life, we are never alone. We always have Spirit with us, walking along our journey with us at every moment. And we have to be the ones to forge the tunnel to actually connect and develop that relationship with them. And when we do, we have this ability to change our perspective on everything, to really be filled with this depth of love that I didn't even know existed. And right. And when I think we have very similar stories in certain regards, where we were both in that victim mindset for so long. And sometimes it's easy for people to look at where we are now and think, wow, right? But they don't see everything that kind of went into getting to this point. But it also doesn't have to be this terrible slog. Spirit will really support us in our healing and movement along our evolutionary path in ways that, even if you're healing, or I should say, even in the healing, feel magical in ways.
Of course, I'm going to break out in a song. Set me free, why don't you, babe?
I love it. Everybody's going to come.
Hanging on.
Everybody's got to see Debbie so they can see you in full force. I have my own Debbie playlist, because every time she's giving me messages, she breaks out inevitably in 4 to 6 songs throughout the session. And now I have my inspirational Debbie playlist that I put on. That. It really helps me in my life. I love it so much. So
I love it.
You just have the best energy. And I just love it. So Debbie, how can my listeners support you on your journey?
Oh gosh. Thank you so much, Lindsay. You can find me. I have my website, which is my name, debbiesquizzero.com. So I'm there, and all of my services for readings, I do in person and Zoom. So you can find me there. I do a one-on-one. I do 2-person. I call it a couple, but you don't have to be a couple. Do a family reading. I do group readings with 10 people or less. And again, Zoom or in person. I'm in Rhode Island. And I also have an 8-person. I do these intimate 8-person Zoom readings, which I love because each person is guaranteed a reading. I read for each person in this 8 group intimate Zoom. And it's so amazing because spirit is so intelligent that when they bring these 8 people together, every single session is just magical in its own way, right down to the readings and the loved ones that come through. It blows my mind every time. So it's a beautiful way to have a shorter reading, or if you want to just experience a reading with me, I offer like 1 or 2 a month. I also have a YouTube channel. I would love for you to subscribe. The 10 years that I sat with clients while I was teaching, I received so many questions about death, dying, the other side, metaphysical, spirituality. So I started a YouTube channel to answer a lot of those questions, and that's under Debbie Squizzero, Evidential Medium. And then you can find me on Instagram and Facebook, and both under my name. Here's the other thing I resisted. I resisted social media forever, and I love it. So I constantly, you will find me interacting with my followers on social media.
Yeah. And you post great stuff. And so I am just so excited for everybody to hear you and know you and dive deeper into all of your stuff. I will put all of that information in the show notes for everybody, but I am just so grateful for you. Thank you so much for being here. I just love you so much.
Lindsay, I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. I adore you. You have the brightest light, and I'm just so grateful. There are no accidents or coincidences. I am just so grateful for you, and that our paths crossed, and we continue to lift each other up, and just, it's a beautiful, thank you for being on my journey, and thank you for allowing me this beautiful opportunity to share my story, my awakening, my spiritual awakening with your listeners. So thank you. Just thank you so much.
So grateful for the vulnerability. I know it's going to help so many.
Thank you so much for listening to the Guided Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you would share it with a friend or even leave me a review so we can ensure that it makes its way into the ears of listeners who need to hear these messages most. Until next time, may you remember how guided you truly are.